Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Atlantic International Film Festival Public Panel Series. This is number 3 of 4, and we're looking today at the world of documentary. We lost our visual, but I want to thank our sponsor today, TELUS Fund. And we're going to be looking at documentary telling the stories of our time, stories that matter. So people, environment, and we're lucky enough to have 3 filmmakers here today, all with films in our festival, and a veteran of the Halifax music and filmmaking scene, Walter Forsyth. So Walter, welcome to the panel and to the others, and thank you very much.
Okay, a round of applause for Chrissy, please. Thank you. Yes, so my name is Walter. I'll introduce the panelists, and then we will get started, if that's okay. So just bear with me, and I want to give some introductions so we get a little context. Okay, I have a 7-page biography from each of you, and I'll start with Dawn. Dawn is next to me, Dawn Wells, and has a song, the documentary that's playing tonight called Songs of Unamaki.
Unamagi, that is.
Unamagi.
Yeah, Unamagi.
Unamagi, thank you. So Dawn is currently writing a feature horror film with development money from Telefilm. She received 2 awards from the Canada Short Film Festival and for her web series, YouTube web series called Haunted Cape Breton, and has won awards for her short horror film called The Shortcut, and recently directed 2 episodes of CBC's Land and Sea, and is producing a 6-part series for Bell 5 TV1 called Creepy Cape Breton. That's Dawn. To her left is Megan. Megan Wenberg is a documentary filmmaker based in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Woo, woo. Her first feature, Drag Kids, followed 4 brave young drag queens on a journey to acceptance. It premiered at Hot Docs. It closed RIDM, if I remember correctly, and it went on to win multiple awards. Megan's second feature, The Killing of Philippa Boudreau, explores the Nova Scotia infamous murder of Lobster. It won the Screen Nova Scotia Award for Best Documentary in 2021. And Megan won the WIFT Atlantic Award for Best Actor?
Unlikely.
Yeah. But you did win a WIFT Atlantic Award. Yeah. Definitely not for Best Actor. No.
Or for me, ever.
Yeah. I would concur. And that's Megan. Thank you, Megan. And Nance Ackerman has been making images and film for over 30 years. Her photography has been featured in Time, Newsweek, Canadian Geographic, New York Times, and the Globe and Mail. Yes, I dug way back, yes. Her first feature documentary called Cottonland, I don't know if you remember that, is, you should, it's great. It has 3 Gemini nominations and shone a spotlight on the connection between opioids, the drug addiction, and the post-industrial malaise. Her collaborative feature documentary, Conviction, went inside Canada's women's prisons to imagine alternatives to incarceration through art and music, and it premiered at Hot Docs. There's lots more I could tell you about Nance, but we'll probably get into that later. So, and Nance Ackerman. I guess I should mention the films as well that you guys are showing. Unsinkable is the feature documentary that Megan has here at the festival. And Nan's premieres tonight as well, a film called In the Quiet and the Dark. It's a 1-hour documentary. And Megan's is 1 hour and a half, kind of. Yes. And Dawn's is 22 minutes, right? Okay, so let's get started. The reason that we're all here today is to talk about the documentary form and hopefully the power that it has and how it can help you guys tell your stories that you are concerned about or passionate about, whether it be aging, or whether it be environment, or whether it be Indigenous stories, and we want to talk about that. So maybe I'll start with a question to anyone who wants to take it, which is this the medium for you to tell your stories? I do think you all work in a variety of mediums. I know Megan's working on an animation. I know Nans is a photographer, and we know about the horror stuff that Dawn does. So yeah, documentary, is that the medium that we should be considering to raise voices and, create activism?
Go, girls. I'll go. I'm kind of a newbie here. But from what I like about documentaries, and I'm still kind of new at this because I'm mostly horror. I like is that what I like about it is that it can inspire people. Oh, right here. Sorry about that.
That helps.
But it can inspire people. A lot of people, just regular people that are not into all these topics. Even myself, like I'm into the horror and all this stuff. Even just watching other documentaries as I put this together, it's just I can see the way it influences people, including people like myself. And then you start to care. I think that's the thing, what's great about documentaries. It takes people that are just regular people, and then it just gets them interested in political issues and music, tradition for my film, for that one. And I think that's what's great. That's what makes a great documentary. It makes people care if it's good.
Thank you. Brady, are you okay with that? Is that loud enough for you? I'm trying to get Dawn to put her mic really close to her mouth. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so it's Dawn. It just like
Oh, okay.
like you're singing a lullaby.
I'm not gonna sing.
No, me neither. What about you two? What do you think?
All right, I'll go. I'll go. Okay, so I guess whether this is the medium or not, I mean, considering now what we're in, I guess you would say, competition with. I mean, the noise that is out there, the actual media that is pummeling us through social media and TikTok and Instagram, and even, I mean, podcasts. Everything. It's actually kind of a tough medium, I think, to sort of get people sitting down for this amount of time to soak up a topic that is this complex. Usually you sort of pick complex topics. But I think I switched myself from, not switched, because I shot all my films, but most of my films. So it's basically, I took it one step further because I was in daily news. I was in those one-hit wonders, those 30 seconds of information. And I was, this is not a fair way to tell stories. This is not there is complexities, there is questions that people need to ask themselves, and can they ask themselves those questions when they've got a 30-second hit, So, yeah, it is to inspire change. It is to inspire people to look at their own lives differently. And I do think you need to sit down for a certain amount of time and soak that up. But it's a tough medium now. I mean, I think it's really tough. Because, I mean, not to say TikTok and Instagram, they're a riot. Like, I love them, but it's like it's a tough competitive way to tell a story.
Because they're so short. Is that what you mean?
No, it's just because there's so much noise. Even to bring people to your story, there's just so much noise out there to get people to care about that topic that you're putting out there. There's already, 70,000 people that have put something out there that already caught somebody's attention. So it's a difficult. I think it's a really difficult time for documentary, but I think it's something where we can take it so deep, and I think that's our responsibility, is to go deeper with it.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I love about documentary. And I did a journalism degree and was really quick, like over the course of the degree, was turned off of daily news before I even went and had a job, but discovered documentary and loved it, and loved the opportunity for getting to know a lot more about a subject and get to spend a lot more time with it and get to watch it evolve over time to kind of come to, I don't know about the word truth, but it felt like a more honest, for me, a more honest way of trying to tell stories, because it allowed for change and it allowed for evolution a bit more, at least with the kind of stories that I'm interested in telling. But yeah, I agree. It's definitely tricky, and that's why I think like film festivals are so important, and bringing audiences together in the same space. Like now that we're hopefully kind of after COVID, it feels amazing to be able to be back here, and just getting to go to films again this year has been so incredible. Documentary and features, like I love it all.
Yeah, I guess one could argue that there's a legacy about documentary films as well, perhaps, as opposed to the TikTok, like the quick hit, quick memory loss, move on. And so perhaps that's something that, you know, we can talk about. I will say, just to like set the table here, we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So feel free to lead as well. This is an opportunity. We have a nice audience here, and we can have this conversation, steer in whatever way it's pretty open, obviously. So happy to, you know, take it down whatever road you want. One of the things about documentary filmmaking, you know, our first documentary is super scrappy. We just make them, you know. Then we start to get bigger budgets, and then we rely on more people, and it becomes more complicated. It takes more time. You talk about it is a hard time for documentary filmmakers in Canada right now. It is a hard time there's not many avenues to get your film shown to a lot of eyeballs. That's, you know, festivals are great. There's not many broadcasters, so there's challenges there. So, you know, I agree, it's a hard time for filmmakers, but it's also a time that you can literally grab a camera. You know, when we started, I remember having to fly to Toronto and spend $3,000 to get my film scanned onto something that I could then edit. That's just the scanning moment, not even the flight and all that. It's way more democratic now. So it's easier. There's more noise, agreed, but it's easier to make films. So maybe you want to comment on any of that I just rambled off. But, you know, the idea that it is harder, but it's easier to make work now. I think it's easier than before to make anything, but it's hard to make something that rises above the clutter. There's not a question in there, but
Yeah, so that's a good comment.
Yeah,
What do you
that's
want
a comment.
us to do now?
That's a comment only.
I can say something
Please.
about that. It's just, actually, that's how I got into it as well, because that's how I kind of got recognized. Because, I mean, if I wasn't doing the films that I was doing for web series and stuff like that, and I'm sure other people are probably doing the same thing, I wouldn't even been recognized, to be honest with you. Like, you know, people like me, and there's other people out there that are actually pretty talented, you know, and just can pick up an iPhone or whatever and just make their own films. And that's pretty much what I did. And this is what brought me on this journey. And, you know, and Donna Davies, people like that, and Stuart Young, people like that just recognized that and just, you know, put me out here. So, I mean, you know, that's why I think it's really important. Technology in ways, even though I know it's different, but in ways it's bringing out more talent. People are being recognized more because of it also, though, so.
Well, perhaps we could explore your journey to get here, because I'm familiar with others. And yours is an interesting one, because, yes, you were working in a medium that we just talked about, like not big budgets, just making it happen, just doing it. And then people recognized you, and now you have a documentary about music that's in this festival tonight that is about sort of saving culture and resurrecting that. And it's a beautiful film. And you're the person that told that, right? You're the voiceover, you're the narrator, you're the person that told that voice. And so how did that come to be? Do you want to talk about that?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't really set out to do anything like on culture or anything like that. And that's the thing. And I used to be in radio before that, actually. So when I first was in radio, I was always like, oh, you know, we're going to do Mi'kmaq stories or something to do with Mi'kmaq topics. And usually I'm selected because I'm Mi'kmaq and I'm from the reserve, and I worked at a radio station and all this. The thing is, I didn't really want to be typecast, but once I got into it and I started exploring more, I started to find out a lot of things as a documentary filmmaker and researching. You find out a lot of things that you never really knew. Like, for instance, in the film, it's not mentioned, but actually my grandfather is one of the main people that actually kind of helped bring back Mi'kmaq culture within the community. And he wasn't even Mi'kmaq. He was actually from Britain, because my whole family, they're all Mi'kmaq. So he was kind of like that part in there that kind of brought the interest back. And you know, a lot of other people saw the beauty in our culture, and we didn't. We didn't see the beauty in our own culture because it's just been it's been kind of taken away from us in our own way, and there's like the shame onto it. But people, outsiders, looked at it and saw it as something beautiful. And, you know, these were things that I discovered. I didn't know anything like that about my grandfather until I looked back into it, and I said, wow, it's an interesting journey. Even the people in the film are people I actually knew, like I grew up with, you know, and I see how, you know, it can get lost. It has to trickle down, the language, the music, and everything. And these are things I'm discovering and say, wow, that is true. I remember that, you know. So, I mean, it's also a journey for me as well. So, you know.
Yes, and you are on the journey that's bringing you, it seems like, more and more into this type of storytelling. Are you going to continue on this type of storytelling? Land and sea episodes and documentaries?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because when I first started, I was just doing radio, and I said, oh, just for the fun of it, I'm going to make a documentary about ghost stories, or I did something like that, and that's how it started. It was just as radio ghost stories, and not just radio ghost stories. I did other documentaries within the community about a boxer who was trying to, you know, I was trying to modernize it, you know, warriors today versus warriors back then. And that's how it started out, was just radio. And then from there, it went into a web series. I started doing the ghost stories. And it seems like every year it seems to grow. It's better and better. Now it's just starting to go into TV and then documentaries. And it just seems like every year it gets better and better. So that's why I think these mediums are good, like, you know, like YouTube and all this stuff. You know, it's good people to explore them more if you can. So, I mean, use them to your advantage, you know.
Thank you. Megan, let's give people some advice, some tips on how you went through your journey and got to where you are. I've seen your film career for quite a long time, go from, you know, very short films to this, and you have a great eye, you have a great sensibility, but you have to navigate, like, all of the crap that is all the barriers in front of you as well to get your stories told. Do you have any advice for us on how to do that?
Yeah. Honestly, the best advice I got was from producer Teresa McInnes, and it was when I was in journalism school. I had found out that people were making documentaries locally, and I was really excited about the film Teresa was working on then. I think it was Teaching Peace. And we went for coffee, and I asked basically that question when I was hoping for kind of a silver bullet to be like, I want to be doing what she's doing. And it was just keep doing it. And I think that's the great thing about it being so much more democratic now, is like, as much as I don't want to go do a documentary on my phone, I could. And if that's something I feel I really need to do and there's no funding and there's no whatever, it's that option is at least available, and that didn't used to be the case. But yeah, the more you just need to keep doing it. I got away from documentary for quite a number of years, and I was in the scripted world, which was great sometimes, but I really did miss documentary, and I've been incredibly lucky to be working solidly for the past 5 years. I have no idea what the next 5 years will be because it's so changeable. But yeah, I definitely want to keep going. Yeah.
Nance?
Yeah.
I know you're working on a film, and I think it's an amazing film about midwives, and I'd love to be a part of it. But it's taking forever, isn't it?
What's 6 years? Yeah, 6 years. Yeah. It's a series, actually, on midwives that are on the front lines of crisis around the world. Like, we've been to Afghanistan and Colombia and Mexico, and yeah. And it's, you know, on the front lines of, like, climate change and gender and all kinds of different edges of battles that are going on. And yeah, it's a fascinating project, but yeah, tough. You have small windows to get, and we hit right in when actually, and this is again this sort of competition thing that when I Steel came out with a beautiful film on midwives, and it was like boom, so okay, that, and then COVID hit, and then it is really, timing is key. I think, you know, if you want to talk about, labors of love and don't give up and all that. I mean, that's one of them. And I had both my babies at home, and I'm a doula, and I've delivered 2 babies and been at about 30 births, and it is my labor of love. And so I think, to me, and in terms of, I don't know if you were asking me about advice, but to me, you have to love. You really have to love, because you're sinking your teeth into it and living with it for years. I mean, our film that we did, there's Teresa right there, and Ariella, we did 3 co-directors, 5 years on a film about women in prison, and the collaborative effort and the actual how we always had each other's backs. I mean, we, obviously we had arguments, but we always had each other's backs. And I think this whole thing where you just never, you have to live with something and you have to love it, and you have to treat your subjects as, to me, to make the kind of films that get to people, you have to treat your subjects as collaborators. It's not telling my story, it's not telling a story, it's basically, you're just a conduit, you're just helping, and every documentary maker knows that. You're just helping someone tell their own story, and in a way that people can consume, and it will hit them in their gut, So yeah, that's labors of love. All of them. They're all babies. They're all your babies.
Well, with midwives, it's like
Literally.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if anybody, I'll give you an update on that. We may have some good news. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck with that one. Let's talk some. Let's be positive for a minute. Let's talk about the wins. So you've all have films. You've made them here. You made them and they're here. So that's great. During the making of each of these films, think of the specific ones that we're talking about that are here: Unsinkable and the other 2. Sorry. Yeah. Can you talk about a moment in those projects where you were like super ecstatic, like, wow, that's awesome? I know it's hard to think of that because we think of all of the barriers and all of the tough things that we've had to overcome. But can you think of an example? Dawn, can you think of an example of when you made this film, you're like, this is great. I'm now making it, I'm greenlit, or it's in the can, or whatever, and that's sort of like, or I've got this person, or I've got this song, or whatever it is that made you really like, this is a win, and maybe how you got there with that for the audience.
Well, I think when I seen them perform and I saw their heart and soul in it, and that's what got me excited. I think that's when I said, oh, wow, this is getting pretty good, And I think, and just when you talk to them, just like you're saying, you get that connection too with them. You realize, they're telling their story. They're taking their time to sit there with you and share with you, Especially if you get something in there that nobody told before. And I feel that there's some parts and voices in songs of Unamagi that you're going to see. And when you get that, I called it the gold clips, you get those, and those are what you need. And that makes you excited. That makes you keep going. And, that's the driving force right there. Yeah.
And when you delivered that, did you have any challenges then making that as well?
Well, I guess the main challenges for any documentary film is getting the people to be there, because some people can back out on you, and it happens. You never know, and you expect people to say certain things, and it's not like a feature film where you write it and you know what's going to happen. Documentary films, you don't know what's going to happen. You think you know what's going to happen sometimes, but it doesn't always work out that way with documentary films, and you got to be creative to use what you have and to make it into something interesting.
Yeah, you never know what will happen, right?
Yeah.
Megan, Unsinkable?
Yeah, I'm always kind of amazed when people agree to be in a film because it's they don't, I guess, initially realize what a commitment it is and how kind of invasive we are. But the fact that people will stick around, it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to share their stories. And for me, there were a bunch of moments. And that's usually when I can tell, because it's so much work getting something off the ground, and then so much work getting ready, in pre-production. And then when you're finally there shooting it, I find because I've been so busy and I'm hoping everything's going right, and I'm worried about the crew and I'm worried about the shot and all of that, that it's hard to sometimes lose yourself in the moment. But then every shoot, usually there's something really powerful that happens. And yeah, it'll bring me to tears sometimes, or I'll just catch myself smiling my face off, because it's brought me back to like the reason for doing it. And in the Unsinkable, it's about senior synchronized swimmers. So we were following people in their 60s to 80s, getting ready for this, the U.S. Masters Championships. And there were so many moments like when they'd be training and they are so fit. Like I've started lane swimming because it's like if these people look like this in their 70s, I need to make some changes. But there was one moment in particular at the championships in the States, and this woman, Shirley, from Idaho or somewhere, she was 91 and she was competing. She was the only one in her age category of like 90 to 99. And everyone in this huge pool stadium just lost their minds for Shirley. And it was so beautiful. And she was so happy. And obviously she won because she was the only one. But it was like the fact that she was still there doing this, like basically had everyone in tears. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for adding your synopsis to the film, because I didn't do that. And so feel free to talk about your projects and promote them as well. Nance, you directed, wrote, edited, and shot your film, right? In the Quiet and the
did
Dark.
the music and the sound edit.
Right. So, but you had other people to help you, of course. But
Yes,
again,
lots
so
of help.
during that whole process, that's a labor of love, I would imagine. And it's an environmental film. It's about the
Hemlock trees.
hemlocks and the evil
Hemlock,
little
yeah. So
HW.
HWA.
A.
Yeah, so hemlock trees are being invaded by a small, little tiny, giant trees are being taken out by HWA, a bug that's been working its way up the east coast of North America and decimating hemlocks, which are a foundation species. I don't know if you guys know about Suzanne Simard. She did, the whole thing about the mother tree, and it's basically a tree that is very much a mother tree and has huge impact on the ecosystem. It creates its own ecosystem. So it's a massive loss. And I got going on this just because I actually have a neighbor, and I have a hemlock grove right behind my house, and it is my place that I go for ceremony. It's my cathedral. It's my church. It's my place I go, and it is now dead from this bug. So I was sort of deeply affected by that. And I haven't done a real, quote, environmental film before, but this just felt very close to home. And I was inspired by the work of this woman. And yes, a lot of help from a lot of people to make the film, for sure.
And did you have any moments of like, what's your win in that movie?
Oh, well, I think after the 7-kilometer portage, after I fell down a basement set of stairs, I think was a bit of a win. But actually, one moment I do remember that was just, our drone team had arrived at this lake, very remote lake in the Tobiatic, and they had arrived the night before, and they'd left a baggie with a walkie-talkie, and they were on the other side of this massive lake. And we started paddling, and my subject was in the canoe with Christopher Ball, one of our cinematographers that worked on the project, who did a lot of the portaging too. But anyway, so I'm on the walkie, and the drone guys are at the opposite end, and I could see the drone way up high, and I was directing this drone going, okay, hold it here, hold it, you got to, I want the canoe to go straight through, they don't let them paddle, and I directed the whole thing with this walkie as I'm paddling, as they're paddling, and it turned out exactly how I had it in my head, and I cry every time I see it, just because it's this emotional moment that we work so hard to get to, and for the woman in the film, and that was just like, yes. So I'm a photographer, so photographically it was really rewarding, and hopefully will be rewarding to watch.
Yeah, it was a great shot.
Yeah.
For sure. I also noticed the camera gear after the portage, then the camera gear in the boat, and I'm like, oh, that's so heavy. That must be so much work going through those woods.
It was brutal.
And my big thing is mosquitoes and black flies.
Well, it was October. No, we hit -7 degrees one night. So yeah, no, it was brutal, but it was worth it. It was really worth it.
Right. Thank you. Dawn, do you want to tell people about your film? And so, yeah, again, for me, I think there's some powerful moments in it. So if you want to talk about anything that was powerful for you specifically, but yeah, please let people know about it.
Yeah, well, I guess with Songs of Unamagi, I guess the film just kind of talks about the modernization of traditional music. You know, how people can preserve traditional music by making it new, making it more interesting. I guess like what Lee Cremo did. And we go back into Helen Creighton's recordings and talking about her with how she preserved a lot of music, not just Mi'kmaq music, but a lot of music throughout Cape Breton and other parts of the Maritimes. And I think it's really interesting how she did this and what we can do today. Like I go on a lot about technology, but I guess with what we can do is now is the time basically. And one of the people in there is going to say that. I don't want to give it away. And I thought that was interesting how he said that about now is the time right now. You know, we have so much technology. We can record things. A lot of these elders out there, elders not just from my community, but from outside our community, they have so many stories to tell no matter what it is, with music and everything like that. And we're losing them. You know, I mean, right now, this is the best time to document it. And that's what I think that's really great about this documentary film. And that goes on with music. And it's a shame, though, because a lot of the music is lost. So, you know, and you'll discover that when you watch the film, you'll see that. But it's still there. Some of it, there's people out there that are preserving it by making traditional music modern and keeping it out there and telling stories right now, too, with, you know, documentary films or social media or whatever. So, I mean, I think the film, that's what it kind of touches on, but it's mostly on music, of course. So, yeah.
Thank you. So maybe, again, we'll open it up to the audience at some point soon, but I'm wondering if you guys can share, I say guys all the time, but you folks is the other one I try, have anything to share about, like, if there are people wanting to do what you're doing, avenues for them to do it, ways to do it. Again, I'm big on the tips and advice, and I come to these things always sort of trying to, as an audience member, trying to walk away with like a nugget or two that I can, you know, carry on. And it's like, I remember, like what somebody said to inspire me, or how do I get through the multiple rejections, you know, like, so could you tell us a little bit about like what's your community? What are the people? Who are the people that are supporting you that other people could go to? You know, anyone that can, anyone or place or idea that can help us make our next documentary. You
don't have tips for us. Yeah, well, I mean, both of us have worked with Teresa McGinnis from C2C, and I mean, I think there are producers out there that are so supportive and believe, sort of creative producers, and believe in you and support you even when, you know, you do a lot of pushing back. And I think it's a tough dynamic, because the thing is, you need someone who's sort of good with numbers and good with applications and good with timing their applications properly, so you don't get those rejections. You know, I wouldn't do the sort of splatter thing where you send out just random applications to everywhere. I think that's one thing that's amazing about, lots of things that are amazing about Teresa, but one thing, she's so strategic. So my advice would be, find a producer who is strategic, who your sensibilities align with, and believe in what you believe in. Yeah, I think it's super important to find good partnerships and people. I mean, because like I said, you're in it for the long haul with a documentary, and you have to find partnerships that mean something to you. You know, you end up being deeply good friends. So you know, find people that you like, find people that make you laugh, find people that are good at the stuff that you're not good at, and which is again why I've partnered with Teresa and another producer, and you know, people that are good at the things I'm not. I'm not great at schmoozing. I'm not great at talking the talk. I'm too blunt, and I think it's great. I mean, I'm seeing the film. I'm, you know, in my mind's eye. I'm not worried about how to fund it. You know, so I think partnerships are hugely key.
Agreed.
Yeah, and early on, for me anyway, like the Atlantic Filmmakers Cooperative and the Center for Art Tapes were really important, because they had programs, like they had courses too. Like, I'd never done filmmaking, so getting to go and just learn about cinematography, learn about gaffing, learn about learn about everything, just to kind of figure out what I was most interested in, because I'd never taken a filmmaking course. So that was fantastic. And then you meet people through the courses and then end up collaborating, and that's super helpful. And that's kind of the beginning of like possibly a team that
AvCoop
you
still do a lot of doc stuff, do they?
I don't know if AvCoop does doc, but like in the beginning for me, I didn't care whether it was doc or
Because I remember I did one
scripted.
thing.
They've been doing the doc program, yeah, like every year.
Oh, that's great.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
'Cause I did it once, didn't I? I think I taught one once.
Yeah, so there's communities like the film co-op. How about for you, Dawn?
For me, it was, I just pretty much entirely just did it on my own. Like I said, like I did everything from the editing, from the narration, everything. And I went to radio school and TV, I didn't take journalism and anything like that. I just kind of just jumped in, threw myself to the wolves.
And
Even
where
with
do you live?
radio.
Where do you live?
I'm in Sydney and Cape Breton, but I'm actually from Membertou. Yeah, that's a
Yeah, I
First
thought
Nation
you were,
reserve.
but
Yeah.
but that's even in Sydney is there's a community, but it's not like a huge community. And in Halifax there's a community. It's not a huge community, so it's not that hard to meet the people. But it's also everyone is in their clique sometimes too.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like even within my community, you don't always get the support. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. I'm not saying that everyone didn't support me. There is some people that did, but it's all about who you know too. Like even within the community, you'll see people that we put on pedestals, and they don't have that much talent. People like, and it's terrible. It happens everywhere. It happens a lot and everywhere, and so I mean, it's just like. But with me, I guess I just kept doing what I kept doing, and I was lucky to meet like a great producer, Donna Davies and Anne Bernier, and from Ruby Tree Productions, and they introduced me to Stuart. So I was just lucky there that I met them, and they were great. They're on a great wavelength with me, like you mentioned. Find a great producer, and it was great. And not everyone's going to recognize you, though. It happens. I had so many things. People are like not interested in what I'm doing, and I didn't get that much support at first, but I just kept doing it because for the love of it, I enjoyed it. And that's what made me keep going.
So
But wait,
My-
I forgot to mention Stuart too. I think we need to give a nod to Stuart.
right. Yes.
Just because
Stuart's here.
it's a tough game for poor Stuart. He's got low budgets, but he is so supportive and so accepting and patient. And when's my salt thing coming out, Stuart?
This is Stuart Young from the CBC, who is very approachable and a great community advocate. So yes, let
And
me.
good with story, which you don't always get.
Right.
Teresa also
Great
excellent
notes.
with story.
So what I'm taking so far from this, I don't know if you have, is like relationships with your subjects, super important. Relationships with your partners, your producers, super important. With your funders, and story is super important. And access, but Nan's not using the microphone, so
Sorry.
I will do that for her. Can I get a show of hands of who's made a documentary in the room? Okay, and so who hasn't? Just a quick hands. All right, okay. That's great, thank you.
Out of who hasn't, who wants to?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. We'll leave fiction films out of it for now. But we're talking about documentary here. That's what this is about. So we'll continue on that stream. Of course, we people. Well, I think we all have dabbled in the other.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. So. Yeah. Let's see. What's next? What should we talk about?
One thing I want to ask, just out of curiosity, because you come from YouTube internet world, and I think that's fascinating. I'd say I'd like to go the other way. I'd actually like to. I want to do podcasts, but but I think one thing that is, and I was talking actually to the head of the NFB about this. The idea that now, because everyone is becoming their own documentarian, everyone has created their own world in their phones. What people think about the idea that now I could walk up to anybody in this room who had a fascinating story, or even after they're dead by some tragic thing that's exciting and interesting, and go to their family and get their phone and get all of their backstory and create a documentary out of that and I was talking about this at lunch, and then combine it with setup reenactments and go out as a documentary. I just want to know what people think of. I mean, I've actually just watched one on Netflix. It was absolutely fascinating, and beautifully done. And they said right up front, this is exactly what they did. So it felt very transparent and honest. But just the idea that now documentary filmmaking, we're not the only people that can, like you say, everyone can tell their own damn stories. So what do you do with that? How do we elevate it? What is our role in that when everybody, and it's not, iPhones, like, I'm sorry, they're absolutely beautiful. If I could have shot my whole film with the iPhone, I would have. It's not my style of shooting using that, but it's definitely something that has its quality. It's beautiful. So what do we do now? Like that, I'm just curious what you think. I'm curious what you think. What do we do now?
I think it's just a matter of who stands out. I mean, there's more competition. That's the thing, though, when you think about it. But it's just like some people, you see who has more hits on. That's how it goes by. Oh, this is how many views I got. This is how many likes I got. That's what it seems like it is. You can take something that's a really great film and a documentary film, say if you just take it and put it online, and you take something that's just a really regular person does a really good film, what gets the most hits? And that's the question, it's like what do you want to watch more? What makes you want to watch this more versus this? So there's definitely a lot more competition I find that brings out. That's the only thing.
What about this idea of personal archives? Everybody's walking around with a personal archive. I mean, Ariella's doing a film now about kind of that whole idea that we all have our own personal archives now, and it's all in different forms depending on your age. But now that it's all in film, it's just, to me, that's just a fascinating way to look at how our business is evolving and how we tell stories. And how other people are telling their own stories too. So it's just sort of, do you have any thoughts, Megan?
No, not really. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it that way before. Like it's, we definitely, I think it depends on the person too. Like I don't care for social media. I hate the hell out of selfies. I don't like having my picture taken generally. This camera makes me uncomfortable. I'd way rather be behind all of it. So in terms of like views and likes and stuff, I try my hardest. Like I don't particularly give a shit, and then I also try to give less of a shit because it just feels like, for me, it doesn't feel like a healthy place. And I get that it's everywhere, and but I guess I'm maybe more in the way things used to be, which is maybe a problem. But I definitely prefer longer form, and I prefer film festivals, and I prefer broadcast, like whatever that looks like, rather than doing something for social media and then trying to like troll for likes by whatever means you do that.
This is your day job, right, Megan? Like you.
Yeah, this is my job.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dawn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much for me as well.
Why, you got a nighttime job for me? I could use it. We're documentary filmmakers. We don't make a lot of money.
Yes, yeah, but that's, I guess that's something that's good to tell people, because a lot of people, there's sometimes a facade, like, oh, I have a film at the festival and now I'm off to my day job. And that happens for a lot of people, that's the case, for sure. But I think that it's just good to tell people that. Another note, just going back a bit, the Nova Scotia Screenwriting Development Program, is that what it's called, I think? I went through that, and there's documentarians who have gotten money to, for writing their documentaries. That's a fund that is available. The deadline's coming up. It's not easy, but that's a fund. Gender parity is super important in that. There's a lot of, but that's a fund that's got Nova Scotia Arts Council, Nova Scotia Arts, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think Arts Nova Scotia.
Arts Nova Scotia,
and
thank you.
they're fantastic, and they
Yeah.
do grants to individuals. I have a very outstanding one
Yeah.
for an animation.
I think I was on that jury. And Canada Council as well. I have a project right now with Canada Council, Nova Scotia Arts Council, Content Creator Fund, Federal Texas, and CBC, all contributing to it. So you can cobble all that together and somehow keep paying your mortgage a little. So yes, I just want to say that you are here and you're making work, and that is your thing that you're doing. And documentary, I mean, again, some of us jump to other things, but documentary can be a living. It can be.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Sure.
I'm going to open it to the audience, if that's okay
Yeah.
with you guys. Yes. Okay. If there's any questions, I would love you to raise your hand And Chrissy, do you want them to just boom their answer and then I'll repeat it? Okay. So, person in the front.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Just to let you know where this is coming from, I'm 82, don't know how long I'm going to be around, but I've had some opportunities. I was on the CRTC, been here with the Film Festival for 30 years, practice law and so on. So the first thing I just want to say is thanks a lot for you guys, because the courts are not deciding necessarily the most important things now. It's jolts per minute on virtually everything that happens. Newspapers are dying, and so who's going to tell the in-depth story? And do you recognize that as your place in history in the sense that are you going to replace newspapers? Are you going to convince the jolts per minute people and in television and even podcasting that there are more important things than just what happened in the last 24 hours? I think that's all.
Thank you. So, 82 years old. Did everyone here? Do you want me to repeat? I'm just repeat. Thank you. Okay. So this gentleman's 82. He's been around for a long time. He wants to thank these filmmakers for doing what they're doing. As a lawyer, and has concerns for like the courts right now are making bad decisions generally, and the idea is who is telling the stories, how are the stories being told, and getting away from this jolts per minute thing. Is that what you said? Yes. And so is there...
The courts are making bad decisions. It's just that they're not making the most important ones.
Right. Okay. Not making the most important decisions, the courts. Yeah. And so...
You have to wait for two plaintiffs to go at each other.
Right. Right. It's the system may have its challenges. So, any comments?
Well, thank you for thanking us. That's
Yeah.
really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you the storytellers?
Yeah, well, replacing newspapers, I mean, I think, well, they're already been replaced, basically. I think that's sort of been come and gone. I think us being sort of, I think, I taught journalism where Megan went to school. I taught journalism, and it's sort of the idea that journalists are there to document and tell the truth. And I think we all know that truth it doesn't really exist. It's just your perception. It's who's ever, you can be right here. We probably have two very different perceptions of what just happened today. I mean, it's truth doesn't really exist. So I feel like I do feel that as long as you have the time, and that's why documentary is so valuable, you have the time to present people in an in-depth, beautiful, and visceral and impactful way, to give them all the complexities of a story, then I think it is a service. I think it's a service, but I don't necessarily think of us as truth tellers. I think of us as storytellers. And stories have to be told in such a way that people will watch them and listen and absorb them. So, yeah, I don't think, I think newspapers, journalism supposedly started as I teach this, but it started as a place to, impartial, objective, and that's just, that went out the window as soon as humans started doing it, because that's not our nature. So I think documentary is important because I think you're right, it gives us, forget the jolt, as long as you get enough jolts to kind of make you receive the call to action that I think we all hope for. We all hope for a call to action. It's like, do something, become more aware of the music and language in your culture, and become more aware of how valuable aging and how fascinating and inspiring it is, and become aware of our planet. I think that's all our role. So.
Nice. Good summary. Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments before we go to the audience again? Back to the audience. Hands up.
That was really good.
Very back corner over here, please.
So two full questions. I just finished recording a doc in Newfoundland, and it's the first one. I'm wondering what comes to you, I'll put it this way, because where the conversation's gone. That minute you get home and do your editing scheme, you're about to decide. And the second part of the question, are you considering algorithms, and are you considering how things are going to market? Because as we're saying, documentary film is changing, but also the markets are changing, and where things end up is definitely changing. So when you're in the editor's suite
So briefly again, this person just finished a doc in Newfoundland, and so when you go into the edit suite, how do you think? What do you do? What are your choices? And specifically, are you considering algorithms? Are you considering marketing? Are you considering beyond, as opposed to just sitting there?
I've never considered an algorithm in my life, and I hope never to consider an algorithm in my life. I'm thinking story, and I'm thinking respect for the characters and how best to elevate their story, because it's because you're usually faced with, like, in my case anyway, 100 hours of footage for something that's maybe going to be 75 minutes. So you have to be really choosy, and you're not going to get to have everything in there that maybe they were hoping you were going to, or there may be things in there that they were wishing that you wouldn't pick that moment, but it's important for the story. It's important for who the character is. So it's like care for the audience, because you want to make something that people want to watch and ideally will be moved by, whether it's to action or just to consider aging in a different way or whatever that might be, whatever the goal of the film is. But also, like, for me, it's really important that the subjects of the film feel good about it, because it's their lives. So that's, yeah, it's kind of those two things are more of the
I'd like to
the
explore
war.
that more with Megan, because Megan's work, it's a tight edge of, like, we're not making fun of this person, it's respectful, but your subject matters tend to be ones that one could perhaps sort of, it could be tricky, and I really like the way that
You
you
mean like
balance
making
that.
fun of old people? What?
Well, no.
What's going on,
just-
Walter?
yeah.
Let's talk about
We'll
that.
talk about that
Making
after.
fun of kids that do drag? I'm not sure.
No, making it funny, making people laugh, but you're not laughing at, you're laughing with.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, laughing with,
Yes.
always.
Yeah, super important. That's not easy to get. Dawn, would you like to talk about that, because you edit as well?
I didn't edit this one. Now, we had Dennis Bradley actually did this one mostly. For this one, when I go through it, though, as a person, when I'm editing the script and, you know, helping Donna Davies, and we're both going through the script and seeing what's important and what's not important. What I look at when I do a script, I think about what has never been told before. I look at other people's stories even. I watch other people's stuff. I watch it. And I say, okay, this has been told so many times. I don't want to say it anymore, and I'm not in the mood to do that. So let's tell something that wasn't told before. And I try to look at that angle. That's what I try to look for. I don't think about algorithms or anything like that. I just think about what hasn't been told. Because
But
people
even
out there
even
look
telling
for
it from your perspective is
Yeah.
is different. See, that's the thing. There's no subject that hasn't been told. So the fact that your perspective it doesn't matter. Each individual filmmaker, you have your own perspective, and that's so valuable in the edit suite. That's so true. You have to have, your own perspective and not worry too much about, originality. I think
It's
originality
hard to be original these days.
There's no
There's
such thing.
Yeah, it's no such thing. But but I guess try not to be like everyone else, like a clone. You want to tell a story. It's supposed to be creative. If you see something that's unique, try to get in there when you're editing or going through it. And that's what you think about. Say, would people want to see that? Would people want to look at that or hear this? That's what you think about.
Great, thank you. I sat on the 47th floor for a meeting last week in the Amazon office, and it was all about algorithms. It really was.
How did that conversation go? Like, do they just bring up,
They just
pitch
talk-
the algorithm? It's over there.
just the way they make story is based on results. Yeah, they test and look and results. Back to the audience. Are there any more? Is a person here in the front? Thank you. Okay. Time's running down too, so we'll try to keep this brief if we could. But good question, which is about complex, dark subjects, themes. How do you, there's a lot of negativity out there. How do you cut? How do you consider? And how do you make work that strikes a balance?
I have a real simple answer. I do a lot of dark social documentaries. So, I had child poverty and drug addiction and women in prison. And yeah, so to make it, I guess, accessible in terms of, I think the goal in any to me, and any storytellers in the edit suite, in your writing, in your shooting, is the audience has to find a little bit of themselves. It doesn't matter whether that person is a drug addict living on the street, or doesn't have a home and living on the street, or whether they're some other country in the middle of a war zone, or whatever it is, and you've never thought in the world you'd ever find some commonality there. To me, that's the goal, because the minute your audience looks at your subject, who they would have walked by on the street and totally ignored before they've seen your film, and you switch something in their brain and they say, oh my God, it reminds me of my brother, or that's just how my mother used to talk to me, or yes, that woman living in poverty, she cares that her son did her homework. Oh my God, she's just like my mother. And as long as you can make those connections, then that dark subject just lifts, because people say, oh my, then you've done your job.
Last minute.
Yep, totally, completely agree with that. And I think this medium is so powerful, and the goal is connection. And I think being able to draw a connection from your subjects to the audience. For me, I've only done one really dark film, and it was about a vigilante murder in Cape Breton, and it was really hard, like really, really, really hard. And for me, what I came away with from that was, I guess, just the importance of consent. And like, I realized I went in there with an idea of like, oh, I want to talk to these people, and we can't make the film if those people don't talk. And then having to completely shift that. And it's like, nope, I cannot badger traumatized people. Only those who want to talk to me are going to be in the film. And if they don't want to talk and we can't make it, then that's how it is. Because there's certain stories that, yeah, it's also arguable, like maybe you don't always have the right to tell them.
Yeah, agency.
Yeah.
Dawn?
I never really told any dark stories other than ghost stories.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. There's a lot of horror in there, but we'll deal with that at the next panel. It's time to wrap it up. I really want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank the Atlantic International Film Festival for having us. I want to thank our guests, Nance, Megan, and Dawn.
Thank you so much to Walter for moderating, and I think there were a lot of threads of community, so with that in mind, I want to plug a few projects here. So you can see both Dawn and Nance's film in about an hour. They're playing together at 5:30 today. And Megan, can we see your film online now?
Yes, yeah, it's streaming through the Atlantic Film Festival. Yeah, for the next week, I think.
All right, so check those out. And then following our festival, there's Lunenburg Doc Fest, which has so many wonderful selections to enjoy. Yep, and Megan's film's showing there too, as well as Dawn's. And finally, I want to invite you all tonight to our Love Film Party. It's at Cable Wharf at 7 o'clock. There will be drinks and poutine and lots of community, so please come on out. Thank you so much.